Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. Alice was a curious young girl, about 7 years old. She had long golden hair tied with a black ribbon and wore a light blue dress with puffed sleeves, a white apron, white stockings, and shiny black shoes. Alice loved to ask questions and often daydreamed about faraway places and magical adventures. One sunny afternoon, she sat under a big oak tree, holding a book on her lap. But instead of reading, she sighed. Alice said, "Oh, how dreadfully dull it is to sit here with nothing but pictures in a book. If only something exciting would happen." Just then, a white rabbit with a red jacket and pocket watch ran past her. Rabbit said, oh dear, I shall be late." Alice gasped and said, "A talking rabbit? With a watch? How very curious!" She jumped up and chased after him, straight to the rabbit hole, and slipped. Alice cried, "Ah! I'm falling! What a peculiar adventure this will be." Books, clocks, and teacups floated around her as she tumbled down, down, down. Alice landed in a long hall filled with tiny doors. On a table sat a bottle labeled "Drink Me." Alice said, "Well, if the bottle says drink me, perhaps it will help me." She sipped and shrank smaller and smaller. Alice exclaimed, "Oh, I'm tiny as a doll." She unlocked a golden door and peeked into a magical garden. Alice said with wonder, "How wonderful! I must go inside." Alice walked into a bright and colorful garden. Flowers swayed gently in the breeze, but to her surprise, they could speak. Rose said, "Look, everyone, a little girl has come to visit us." Tulip said, "Her hair shines like golden sunshine." Alice smiled and said, "Oh my, you can talk? That's wonderful." Sunflower said, "Stay with us, Alice. We love company." Alice shook her head and said, "You're very kind, but I must keep going. I'm following a white rabbit." The flowers giggled together as Alice waved goodbye and continued along the garden path. Soon, Alice heard laughter and clinking teacups. She found a long table under the trees, covered with cakes, teapots, and cups. At the table sat a man in a big green hat, a rabbit with wild eyes, and a tiny mouse sleeping in a teacup. Mad Hatter said, "Welcome, welcome. Sit down and have some tea." March Hare said, "Yes, yes. More tea, more cake." Alice sat carefully and said, "Thank you, but why are there so many cups?" Mad Hatter grinned and said, "Because it's always tea time here. We never stop." Dormouse mumbled in his sleep, "Jam, honey, Alice giggled softly and whispered to herself, "What a very curious tea party." After leaving the tea party, Alice walked into a quiet forest. Suddenly, a striped cat appeared on a tree branch, grinning widely. Alice said, "Oh, who are you?" Cheshire Cat replied, "I'm the Cheshire Cat, and who are you?" Alice answered, "I'm Alice. Could you tell me which way I should go?" Cheshire Cat said, "That depends on where you want to end up." Alice explained, "I just want to find the white rabbit." The Cheshire Cat smiled even wider and said, "Then you'll surely meet the Queen of Hearts. Be careful, she has a fiery temper." The cat slowly faded away, leaving only its glowing smile. Alice looked up in surprise and said, "How very strange. Only his grin remains." Alice followed the path and soon entered a grand royal garden. The Queen of Hearts was there, shouting loudly. She was playing croquet in the strangest way, using flamingos as mallets and hedgehogs as balls. The Queen of Hearts cried, "Faster! Hit the ball! Off with his head if he misses!" Alice spoke nervously, "Your Majesty, may I try to play?" The Queen narrowed her eyes and said, Very well, but don't you dare cheat." Alice tried to play, but the flamingo bent its neck and the hedgehog rolled away. Alice sighed and said, "This game is impossible." The Queen of Hearts shouted, "Impossible! Guards! Watch her carefully!" Alice gulped, realizing the Queen was not only loud, but also very, very bossy. Soon, Alice was taken to a grand courtroom inside the castle. Playing cards stood as guards, holding long spears. At the front sat the Queen of Hearts and the King of Hearts on their thrones. The White Rabbit blew a trumpet. The White Rabbit announced, "Hear ye, hear ye! The trial is about to begin." The Queen of Hearts shouted, "The girl is guilty! Off with her head!" Alice stood bravely and said, "That's not fair. You don't even know what I did." The King of Hearts said softly, "Perhaps we should listen to her first, dear?" The Queen of Hearts stamped her foot and said, "Nonsense! I am the Queen, and I say, off with her head." Alice grew taller and taller until she stood above everyone. She declared, "You're nothing but a pack of cards." Suddenly, the playing cards flew up into the air, swirling around her like a storm. Alice covered her face, then opened her eyes. She was lying under the oak tree again. The sunlight was warm, and the breeze was gentle. Alice blinked and said, "Oh, it was all a dream, or was it?" She sat up, smoothing her blue dress, and heard the faint echo of laughter in the air. Alice smiled softly and said, "What a curious adventure. I'll never forget it." And with that, Alice skipped home, her heart full of wonder and imagination.